Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week we're taking a closer look at Jimi Hendrix and asking the question, how good was he? Really? Last Friday saw the 50th anniversary of Jimi Hendrix's death, and suffice to say it wasn't an occasion that went unmarked. Music publications and social media alike were flooded with glowing tributes, effusive eulogies and fond recollections of Jimi's life, work and the impact that he had not only on the world of guitar but on popular music in general. However, in reading some of the responses to the praise heaped on Jimi last week, it became clear that for a lot of people, some of the reasons that Jimi is so revered have kind of been lost to the mists of time. So I thought today's video would be a good opportunity to take a bit more of an objective look at his life, his work and his capabilities as a guitar player, and try and get to the bottom of why so frequently Jimi is lauded as the best guitarist that has ever lived. First up, and one of the most common sentences associated with Jimi Hendrix, is that he changed the way guitar was played. Now, of course, his influence is still incredibly widely felt today, but that's one of those slightly cliched phrases that is very readily thrown around, often with no explanation. So what does it mean? Now, rewind to 1966, and guitar is experiencing a bit of a surge in popularity as a virtuoso instrument. British music publication Beat Instrumental just named then Yardbird Jeff Beck as their favourite lead guitarist of 1966, roughly at the same time that walls and garages around London were being adorned with Clapton is God graffiti, just after the release of the Beano album in July of 1966. Guitar-driven band The Kinks were climbing the charts, and the Beatles had just released Revolver, tracks like Taxman signalling a significant step in the transition from pop group through to an innovative rock band. However, from the first notes of Jimi's first album, either Purple Haze or Foxy Lady, depending on which side of the Atlantic you were listening on, it's clear that Jimi Hendrix was something very different. He embraced fuzz and distortion not only as a sound but as an integral part of the performance, using dissonance and feedback to create controlled chaos that really was unprecedented at the time. His wild showmanship, playing guitar behind his head with his teeth, setting it on fire, all honed during his time on the Chitlin circuit and heavily influenced by the likes of T-Bone Walker, confused and intrigued the British music press in equal measure, leading to the somewhat questionable moniker the Wild Man of Borneo. His vigorous use of the whammy bar, his love of new and groundbreaking effects both in and out of the studio, his wide, slow, deliberate vibrato, his unison bend, his seamless fusion of lead and rhythm playing. Even if Jimi wasn't necessarily the first to post on any of the above, he was undoubtedly the first guy to combine them to such electrifying effect. And it says a lot that Eric Clapton, deity or not, was famously terrified by his first experience of Hendrix, who got up the jam with Cream at the Regent Street Polytechnic in 1966. As Jack Bruce later recalled, Eric was a guitar player, Jimi was a force of nature. He reset the bar on what it meant to be a guitar player. Combination of songs, showmanship, virtuosity, talent, charisma, image, everything about Hendrix at that particular point in time was near enough unprecedented. And much like his capabilities as a songwriter, something which very frequently flies under the radar with Jimi is his sublime rhythm playing, that interwoven blend of harmony, interesting chord inversions and lead lines that you can hear scattered throughout his back catalogue. Now, Jimi's often credited with having pioneered this technique, but as with most things or people, it's very much a confluence or a continuation or evolution of several styles introduced by musicians that Jimi admired, specifically Steve Cropper and Curtis Mayfield. It's very easy to draw a direct lineage between their playing, Mayfield in particular, and the style of playing that Jimi would later come to typify. Now, the Impression civil rights anthem People Get Ready is often cited as a great example of the type of combined rhythm and lead playing that Curtis Mayfield would use that would heavily inspire Hendrix, but you can actually hear Curtis honing his style as early as 1963, especially on the Impressions track I'm the One Who Loves You. And needless to say, there are countless examples of Jimi having taken this style and run with it. One that always springs to mind is his verse playing on his cover of Like a Rolling Stone, taken from Winterland in 1968. But one that always blows my mind, whether on records or I think the only known live recording, a very sketchy quality bootleg, is his rhythm playing on Bold as Love. Such a sublime example of how to take a relatively simple chord progression and turn it into something truly beautiful. Much has been made of Hendrix's use of the Hendrix chord, the 7#9 chord, but for me the real game changer and something which very heavily inspired my playing is Jimi's use of getting his thumb over to fret the bass notes, leaving your fingers free to work between harmony and lead lines. Really was a game changer for me. Probably the most talked about facet of Jimi's playing, understandably so, is his lead work. After all, he is responsible for some of the most iconic guitar parts of all time. Odds on, if you stopped and asked anyone in the street to hum the sound of an electric guitar, they'd probably give you a rendition of the introduction of Voodoo Child. Any number of the solos in All Along the Watchtower could have been a career-defining moment for a lesser musician. And of course, his rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner from Woodstock in '69 is legendary. He could weave effortlessly from melodic, structured solos like Little Wing through to manic, chaotic soundscaping in the likes of Machine Gun by the Band of Gypsies. It's near impossible for me to pick a favourite solo of Jimi's, but if push came to shove, I'd probably say the Wing Cries Mary, primarily for the fact that it introduced me to two very important concepts that I still use very heavily in my playing today. First of which is the idea of a theme or a motif to develop a solo. If you listen to the first three turnarounds of the chord progression of the solo, Jimi uses a very similar motif that resolves very slightly differently every time, which gives it a great sense of progression or building and continuity. It really does feel like you're going somewhere. The second of which then is using relevant harmonies to correspond with the chord progression underneath to outline what you're playing. You wouldn't necessarily know it at first listen, but the chord progression under the solo Wing Cries Mary is actually quite unusual. But the way Hendrix follows it around is so fluid and so seamless, it seems like the most natural thing in the world. It says a lot that for all his wah pedal and whammy bar antics, he really was capable of writing some of the most beautiful melodies and timeless songs. Ultimately, I guess the true reflection of someone's greatness is the influence they had, not only in their time, but on future generations that were to follow. And by that reckoning, or by that logic, pretty much with the exception of Eddie Van Halen, nobody inspired such a dramatic change of the guitar's landscape as much as Jimi Hendrix did. It was the first time there was a seismic, quantifiable leap in the guitar's evolution. It wasn't just a continuation or a progression of everything before. Everyone from the likes of Stevie Ray Vaughan to Matt Bellamy to Slash to Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Kirk Hammett, even Freddie Mercury cited Jimi Hendrix as a big influence. Honestly, you would struggle to find anyone who didn't include Jimmy's reference points in their playing, whether directly or indirectly. People like John Mayer or John Frusciante are great gateway entrances to Jimmy's legacy, whether it's through direct covers like Bold as Love or Wait Until Tomorrow, or something like the heavily Hendrix-inspired solo on the outro of Down in California by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Obviously, that made its way all the way to mainstream radio, stylistically very close to Hendrix, and bears all the kind of motif-laden hallmarks of a solo like When Cries Mary. No doubt there have been better players since, and no doubt there'll be more to follow, but, as the old saying goes, you only see further by standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's encouraging to see that even 50 years after his death, there is such reverence, and Jimmy is still held in such high esteem for everything that he did, not only for popular music, but of course as guitar players. Truly one of the greatest musicians we've ever known. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, I'll see you soon.